Alright, Lantis, so if you didn't watch yesterday's video, we did get some leaks regarding our next upcoming banner that will be getting announced in less than 24 hours time. If you do want to know what the banner is ahead of time, you can check out that video. If not, don't worry, we're not going to really spoil the banner for this particular video. Because today's video is going to be focused on the upcoming Limit Breaker quest that will begin on the 31st, so it's actually dropping alongside the new characters, which I guess is kind of cool. More often than not, it does drop on the 1st, a day after the new character releases. So that means if you do pull on the upcoming banner, if you assumingly get the character design for Limit Breaker, you can instantly take them into this quest. But maybe you're going to be skipping that banner. Well, we're going to potentially talk about some of the other characters that you can use. And since we also don't know the stats and skills for the upcoming banner, we at the very least do know, and we kind of known this due to the guild quest schedule, is that this upcoming end of month is going to feature a new speed range character with Hollow Killer. So very likely the best quote-unquote character of the banner, we'll have to see how it does play out, is going to be a speed character. They are going to have Hollow Killer, and they are also going to be a range type. And I guess in a way it does make sense. I don't think there are that many great speed Hollow Killers in the attribute, and that might encourage you more to summon for this new character just for Limit Breaker. In the context of Guild Quest though, you can probably be fine without this character because 9th Anniversary Grammy exists. And in all honesty, when we do talk about it, you can probably just use Grammy in slot 1. But the quick breakdown is that again, slot 1 wants you to bring a speed ranged Hollow Killer, slot 2 wants you to bring a power melee no affiliation killer, and slot 3 in a way more flexible, but they do want you to bring a technique human killer. So in this case, this is what the team is looking like. They're the 3 characters they want you to use. Obviously, the first slot character hasn't been announced just yet, but we will find out tomorrow who that is going to be. While we're at it, because these characters, Driscoll and also Shinji, want to be used in slot 2 and 3, that also does mean that their characters and banner is returning. Well, in the case of Driscoll, he's currently available right now. If you did summon on that banner, don't recommend it. But it also does mean that Shinji, Momo, and also Rurouni are returning while this Limit Breaker quest is active, probably within the first week of the month. Before we even see the filler pool, I would still say this banner is going to be an easy skip. If you were playing in February, you should have access to these characters already since they were given for free, at least one of them. And if you did pick Shinji, well, you might have a great character for slot number 2. But with that said, let's talk about some of the better characters to use in slot 1, 2, and also 3. So remember, first up, we do want to bring a speed character, we want them to have Hollow Killer, and we want them to be a ranged character. So what this unfortunately does mean is that if you're trying to match all the rules, there's not really going to be an amazing character here. Your alternative options are characters that came out 2 to 3 years ago, and none of these characters here in particular can deal with the poison enemies. The hollow enemies themselves do actually spin around quite a lot. So I can definitely see slot 1 being quite a nuisance if you are trying to match all the rules. I guess your best character, if you do want to meet all the requirements, is going to be renewed 3rd Anniversary Okura. He does have Hollow Killer, he's a ranged character, and I guess the weakening and burn will help out his damage output, but what we are going to see here is that his damage output is just not going to be the greatest, right? Frenzy +1 and an 80% spiritual pressure boost. Nowadays, the bare minimum is Frenzy 2, 80% spiritual pressure boost. Ways to stop the enemy, whether that's a stat summon like Dominate, Paralysis, or Freeze, or maybe they have Poise Break. So you're going to definitely notice a lack of damage when using a character like this. And the only way to somewhat make him viable is if you probably have him max transcended. And that's assuming you're trying to go for like the highest score possible, 25 stages plus. If he is your best character, then by all means go for it. For the most part, you should be aiming for stage 15 plus because that does get you all the spirit orbs. Any extra stage that you do get is more transcendence points. So what we can potentially do here is look at different alternatives. So instead of looking at a speed range Hollow Killer, let's just look at speed range characters. Unfortunately, doesn't make it any better. None of these characters here, maybe besides Macy's, stand out. In fact, if we actually look at SP units post Macy's release in the bottom left here, a lot of these characters are just normal attack damage characters or someone that just doesn't have a good damage output, at least outside of Guild Quest. So in that case, maybe you're better off looking at a speed Hollow Killer that isn't a ranged character, but instead melee. With that in mind, it does add a few more options. Senjumaru, Sangdu, and also Isane. And I would actually say Isane and also Sangdu are some of the better characters to use for slot number 1 if you do own them. In terms of priority, I would probably say Sangdu is going to be the first best character for a melee speed unit, then Isane, then Senjumaru. Senjumaru has a good damage output, a consistent one, but no way to stop the enemies. Isane is more of a farming character, character, but she does have a decent damage output. Buffs your team too if that matters, and is going to be able to easily stay at full stamina while also keeping your team potentially at full stamina. But of the three, Sangdu definitely does have the highest damage output here. He has freeze on every attack with a barrier, making it more likely for him to not take any damage, stay at full stamina, and also do a respect amount of damage, especially when the gauge effect is active, because it does give him frenzy +3. Without that though, he still has frenzy 2, more damage to frozen enemies, and a 120% spiritual pressure boost when you do inflict a status omen, which in this case he does have an increased chance against all power enemies. Let's say you don't have any of those characters though. Well, your next best thing to do is bring a ranged holo killer, and in that case, options don't open up that much, but the main character here is going to be 9th anniversary Gremmy. Even though he's going to be a technique character, Gremmy is Gremmy. He is one of the best characters in the game. He has holo killer plus with a stupid damage output, like ridiculous damage output, even almost a whole year later. Frenzy +3 everywhere, an 80% spiritual pressure boost, a 70% strong attack damage increase with more damage to Quincy's. He's immune to every statism, and he has an increased statism chance against holos, and then does 30% more damage, with the fact too that he does have a really good strong attack here, one of the best in the entire game, paralysis, and also drain. So even though he doesn't have poise break, he is almost likely to actually inflict paralysis, stop the enemies in place, where you're then doing significantly more damage. At the same time, the EX skill does lower the enemy's defense, raises your character's stats. That will let him clear faster, but also allow your other two characters clear their stages faster. And since the idea is that you want to use this character in slot 1, if you do get into that poised enemy stage, and maybe that's going to be one of your limits, if you clear his stage fast enough, going into slot 2 and 3 poised enemy stage, they will have the full duration, that 30-second team boost. So unironically, despite the enemies being powered, which definitely is going to nerf his damage output a tad bit, because he does have attribute disadvantage, Gremmy is going to be just the best character, I think, for slot 1 if you do not pull this new character. And that's probably why they're making this new character a speed unit, because they just know this is the only way to nerf Gremmy, at least for this current month. And the same can be said for GQ, that Gremmy is one of the best characters in the game. So I would like to say slot 1 should be relatively easy. How fast you clear slot 1 with Gremmy ultimately comes down to your dupe investment in the character, and how good transcended your links are too. If you are someone that does have a worked on account, maybe a duped out Gremmy, yeah, Gremmy's probably maybe even going to be better than that upcoming character at 1 out of 5. Maybe not, but I feel like I've seen the same thing happen in the past, even when the enemies were power. Next up, let's have a look at slot 2. In this case, we want to bring a power character with no affiliation killer, and we want them to be a melee character. Like we said, this character is going to be best in slot 2. He is going to be doing 40% more damage to no affiliation enemies thanks to his killer plus. The character itself also does have dominate, and dominate for the most part excels in Limit Breaker Quest because the enemies themselves, the poised enemies in particular, do deal a lot of damage to each other. And in general, he just has a good damage output, very similar to characters like Giselle, the past two Giselles more so. Gonna be a very easy to use character, great in slot 2 if you do have him, and again hopefully you do, because he was advised to be picked during the photo print round 2 ticket, unless you went ahead and picked up Momo. One thing to note too is that this character does actually increase your entire team's damage by 20% to those that are inflicted with a status omen. Likely all 3 characters here, Driscoll and that character you potentially want to use in slot 1 is going to want to inflict status omens to get the most out of their damage output. And even if you are using Gremmy, again this character is overall just increasing more damage. It's overall good, right? So yeah, definitely go to best in slot for slot number 2. If you don't have him, potentially maybe a character like Nelly-O can be used. Definitely not to the highest stages, stage 20 plus. The problem with this character here is that while she is going to have a consistent damage output thanks to her Frenzy 2 and also damage to weakened enemies, increased status chance, the character itself does like a strong attack damage increase and also no spiritual pressure boost. So potentially your next best thing to do is bring a power melee character. Once more, a character preferably that can stop the enemies that have poise. So potential substitutes, maybe not to the best, would be Bankai Senjumaru. The problem with this character is going to be the lack of a status increase. Keep that in mind. She only has it against Soripus. And potentially maybe Soifun if you have no other better option. Once more, the problem with Soifun is that she doesn't have an increased status chance here. But at the benefit, she does give your team recharge in between stages and also a team boost. So that might help you clear the other stages faster to make up for the time lost with this character. If that doesn't fit the bill, what you then can do is just bring a melee no affiliation killer. And with that, we do get a few more options. So in this case, you could go with Yuha Buck. Yuha's overall still a good character. He isn't going to get the power damage ×2, but he will have 20% more damage to the no affiliation enemies. And then Yuha also does give your team an extra soul bomb, potentially allowing you to clear one poised enemy stage faster, allowing you to free up time with this character. And Yuha as a character gets stronger as the quest does go on with all these bonuses here. And he's also quite a self-sufficient unit because every time the character goes into another stage, it reduces the strong attack cooldown. So whenever he's next available, he will be able to clear the stages super fast. The problem with Yuha compared to some of the newer characters more so is the lack of poise break. He's not going to be able to stop the enemies from attacking him, so you're going to have to do a lot more dodging. But honestly, Yuha shouldn't be a bad character in slot 2, and maybe the same can be said for a character like Wyatt. Now, unfortunately, Wyatt's increased damage chance to get his spiritual pressure boost and also 100% more damage is to only heart enemies. There aren't heart enemies in this quest. But he might be your next best character if you have no one else to use. But unironically, kind of similar to what we are seeing with slot 1 with Gremmy, right? Maybe your next best character to use is just going to be Owetsu. Again, similar situation. He does have no affiliation killer plus, so he's doing 40% more damage, and this character itself has a super high damage output. The problem is though, this time around, he will have attribute disadvantage. However, if you have him, but no Shinji, he probably is still going to be your better character to use. Because even with attribute disadvantage, the character itself still has Frenzy +3 when the gauge is active at the bare minimum, and 140% increase in damage when the enemy isn't inflicted with a status element, and also a 100% Berserker. With a great strong attack kit, I would say if you don't have Shinji, maybe try out Owetsu. And you know what, we might actually try that out ourselves using a team that does not have attribute advantage. Gremmy in slot 1, Owetsu in slot 2, and honestly, it's maybe only possible because these characters have like really high damage output, that they actually might be usable even when they're technically not supposed to be. And then lastly, when it comes to slot 3, again, in a way, the more flexible slot, there's only a 3x killer effect. So technically, you could use any technique character you want to. Maybe you want to use Gremmy in slot 3 if you have this potential upcoming new character in slot 1. Obviously, the character they want you to use is going to be Driscoll. And Driscoll is designed for Limit Breaker. That's most of where he shines in. He wasn't like that impressive when it comes to guild quests. But the character itself, just like his Shrift ability, gets stronger as the quest does go on, picking up more devastation, that's soul bomb damage, strong attack damage with the Berserker. He also does have the Rampage skill where he does get 100% more damage. And he's also going to have killer effect with the increased damage chance to inflict lacerate. Since the character is going to be used in stage 3, the enemies themselves should have less HP when compared to slot 1 and 2. So if you use this character in the past when he first released during his Limit Breaker month, he may actually be more impressive now because the enemies themselves should be weaker to a certain extent. But yeah, other than that, just bring your best technique character. Alternatively, what you can do if we actually specify, right, he has a human killer, I believe it's Quincy Ichigo. So yeah, you could go with Quincy Ichigo. He's a premium character, might have been out for quite some time now. Maybe you have duplicates invested into this unit, but he's a technique character of human killer. Weakening and drain ensures that he can deal more damage, also keep himself at full stamina. And similar to Yuabak, he does reduce the cooldown for your strong attacks by 20% every time you move into another stage. So when the character is next available, it basically ensures that all of the strong attacks are back and ready to be used. If you are potentially using Gremmy in slot 1, maybe using this character in slot 3 wouldn't be a bad idea, because then that means Gremmy can spam all his strong attacks every time the character is next available. So unironically, he might be a good character in slot 3 just to make Gremmy better. And I would probably most recommend that character if you are missing Driscoll. Once more, alternatively, just bring any recent human killer. A character like Soifon, I would love to say is going to be good in slot 3. Kind of similar to how Owetsu and Gremmy might be good in their slot 1 and 2. But once more, this character has the problem of not having attribute advantage. I feel like for Soifon's case, as good as she is, might be more of a problem with this unit when compared to Owetsu and Gremmy because they just hit harder. But maybe it's worth giving a try with this character in slot 3 because again, she does boost the team stats and she does give everyone the recharge. So maybe that's worth using in slot 3. I definitely will try it out again. Expect a video of me using that team, Gremmy, Owetsu, and also Soifon. 3 characters that don't have attribute advantage because I'm very curious to see how far that is going to go. But honestly, maybe even more so than Driscoll and also Ichigo, maybe this character is the character you want to use in slot 3. He has Human Killer Plus, Weakening and Paralysis is a very good combination of stat elements. The barrier on the EX keeps your team protected when you are getting to those more difficult stages. And the character itself has a good damage output, essentially 100% strong attack damage with Frenzy 2, an 80% Spiritual Pressure boost, and then also 30% more damage. He does have an increased stat element chance, so yeah, I would probably recommend using him in slot 3 if you don't have Driscoll. So obviously the best team this time around is likely going to be this team, although I wouldn't be surprised if Gremmy somehow is still better than this upcoming character they want us to use in slot 1, assuming you maybe have Gremmy Max Transcended. If you don't have these characters, maybe your next best option is going to be this particular team. That might be the next best team that you can bring, and anything other than that, just bring again your best characters. And remember, when it comes to Limit Breaker quests, don't stress if you can't get all the rewards. As long as you get this stage 20 plus, you get majority of the rewards. You're only going to be missing out on like 30,000 Transcendence points. And the most important reward for every player is the orb count, which is 50, and you only have to get to like stage 15, maybe even less to get all the orbs. So overall, I would like to say this might be one of the more easier Limit Breaker quests, just due to the fact that everyone should have access to Gremmy. Hopefully you have access to Parasol Shinji because he was almost guaranteed essentially for free. And slot 3 I think has some decent alternative options. Let me know in the comments below what team you guys plan to use, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.